What if the secret to unlimited abundance wasn't a modern breakthrough, but an ancient truth hidden in plain sight? Jesus spoke about infinite supply, but where did he learn it? Discover how the very first book of the Bible, Genesis, holds the foundational key to unlocking the life of overflowing spiritual and material blessings you've always dreamed of. All right, family, let's get into it. You know, most of us are out here grinding, hustling, trying to manifest this and attract that. We're constantly checking our accounts, both the bank one and the spiritual one, wondering why we're always coming up short. We're praying for a blessing, waiting on a breakthrough. Like God's got a limited supply and we missed the drop. But what if I told you that's all cap? A total lie we've been sold. The real deal, the ancient key that Jesus himself dropped in the book of Genesis, has been sitting there the whole time. It's not about getting more from God. It's about realizing you are already plugged directly into the source. The infinite supply ain't a thing you get, it's the truth of what you are. So, if you're ready to stop the struggle and find out how to tap into that flow state with the universe, where everything you need is already handled, you gotta stick around. We're about to crack the code on Genesis and unlock a level of abundance that'll make you wonder why you ever stressed in the first place. So, the real question isn't, how do I get it? The question is, what would your life look like if you knew, for a fact, that the supply was infinite and it was all for you? What would you do differently tomorrow? If this hit different for you today, if it unlocked something, do me a solid, like the video, comment 777 if you're tapping into that frequency, and subscribe. This journey is just getting started, and I don't want you to miss what's next. Let's get it. You gotta stick around. We're about to crack the code on Genesis and unlock a level of abundance that'll make you wonder why you ever stressed in the first place. Now, let's get straight to the heart of the matter. When we talk about an infinite supply, our minds, trained by this world, immediately go to the stuff. We think about stacks of cash, a new ride, the dream job, the perfect relationship. We're conditioned to see supply as a noun, a thing out there that we have to go and get. We pray for the thing, we affirm the thing, we hustle for the thing. But that entire framework, the whole setup of me in here and supply out there, is the very wall that keeps us locked out of the garden. That's the big reveal, the secret Jesus was trying to show us. The infinite supply ain't a thing you receive, it's a state of consciousness you inhabit. It's the fundamental nature of reality itself when you're plugged into the source. Think of it like this: you don't go to the ocean with a teaspoon. You become the ocean, and then the teaspoon's the buckets. The whole concept of needing water becomes a joke. You are the water. This is what that passage in Genesis is pointing to when it says we were made in the image and likeness of God. It's not about physical appearance, it's about nature. If God is the source of all, the infinite wellspring, then your true spiritual identity, the you, before the world told you who you were, is a direct or individualized expression of that wellspring. Your being is a fountain, not a bucket. This is why the struggle is real, but it's also totally unnecessary. The feeling of lack, of not enough, isn't a financial condition, it's a spiritual fever. It's the symptom of living from the outside in, from the effect instead of the cause. We're so busy looking at our empty hands, we forget the power that animates those hands in the first place. We're like a fish in the ocean desperately praying for water. The supply isn't coming, it's already here. It's what you're swimming in. It's what you're made of. So, when Jesus talks about the kingdom of heaven being within, this is the practical application. He's not talking about a location you visit when you die. He's talking about this state of awareness, this inner realm of conscious oneness with the Father, where you know yourself as the expression of the supply, not a seeker of it. All his miracles, the loaves and fishes, the money in the fish's mouth, they weren't party tricks. They were object lessons. He was demonstrating what life looks like when you live from that state of consciousness. He wasn't manifesting supply. He was revealing the supply that was already invisibly present. He was showing us that when you align your consciousness with the truth of your source, the forms that you need for your journey, the ideas, the energy, the resources, appear as a natural and effortless effect. They don't get created, they get recognized. The shift isn't in your bank account. The shift has to happen in your awareness. You have to stop identifying as the beggar with the empty cup and start knowing yourself as the child of the king, heir to the entire estate. The supply isn't something God has to decide to give you. It's what you are, because He is what He is, and you are His own. The supply isn't something God has to decide to give you. It's what you are, because He is what He is, and you are His own. So if that's the ultimate truth, why does it feel so far off? Why does life hit different, like we're on the outside looking in at this promised abundance? It's because we've been reading from the wrong script. We skipped the prologue that sets the whole story straight. We've been living like we start at Genesis 3, the chapter with the fall, the sweat, the thorns, the struggle, and we've totally missed the foundational power of Genesis 1. That's where your original blueprint is laid out, and it is absolute fire. The 1:27 vibe, where it says God made man in His own image and likeness, is the non-negotiable pre-mistake design spec for your entire being. This isn't some poetic, metaphorical flex. This is the technical manual for your consciousness. This is the state before the idea of a you, separate from source, ever entered the chat. It's the reality where you don't have a connection to God. You are the expression of God. Your very life, your awareness, your being is the evidence of the infinite supply showing up as you. You are the proof of what you're praying for. This changes everything. It means that lack, scarcity, and that gnawing feeling of not enough are not your original programming. They are a glitch, a virus in the operating system, a case of mistaken identity. You are not a sinner in the hands of an angry God, trying to earn a blessing. You are the very likeness of the blessing itself, temporarily convinced you're something less. It's like a billionaire with amnesia, stressing over a light bill, completely unaware of the fortune that's sitting in their name. The fortune doesn't appear when they finally remember it. It was always there. The remembering just restores their access to it. Your work, then, isn't to build your abundance from scratch. Your work is to remember the blueprint. Your work is to peel back the layers of the world's lies. The lies that tell you you're only a body, only a resume, only a bank balance, and return to the conscious awareness of what you truly are. This is the secret that unlocks the flow. You stop trying to attract supply to the limited character you think you are, and you start embodying the limitless Christ, consciousness that you are designed to be. The forms, the ideas, the opportunities, the necessary resources, then don't feel like miraculous exceptions to the rule of struggle. They feel like the most natural, logical effects of living in alignment with your original design. They are the evidence that you're starting to operate on your factory settings. The universe isn't doing you a favor, it's just matching the frequency you're finally broadcasting. The forms, the ideas, the opportunities, the necessary resources, then don't feel like miraculous exceptions to the rule of struggle. They feel like the most natural, logical effects of living in alignment with your original design. They are the evidence that you're starting to operate on your factory settings. The universe isn't doing you a favor, it's just matching the frequency you're finally broadcasting. And that right there is the key to understanding the whole mess. Because if our original blueprint is pure, unadulterated abundance and oneness, then what in the world is this curse all about? What's with the thorns and the thistles and the hole? By the sweat of your brow, program we all seem to be stuck in. We've been taught to see it as a punishment from a vengeful God, a sentence handed down for disobedience. but from the higher state of consciousness Jesus was teaching. That's a complete mistake. It's not a punishment, it's a description. The curse is the automatic, impersonal consequence of living from a state of separation. It's what life feels like when you boot up from the Genesis 3 operating system, the one built on the belief in good and evil, lack and limitation, versus universe. It's not that God zapped the ground. It's that when consciousness falls into the belief that it is a fragile, separate self, disconnected from its source, the entire world reflects that belief back at it. The ground only becomes hard to till because you're now trying to do it all on your own steam, with your own limited power, cut off from the infinite power of the Father within. The struggle isn't a divine penalty. It's the natural friction of a limited sense of self trying to navigate a world it perceives as hostile and scarce. It's the inevitable outcome of a misidentification. You think you're a beggar, so you see a world that withholds. You believe you're a sinner, so you experience a world of judgment. This is the veil that Paul talks about, and it's woven entirely from the thread of a lie about who and what you are. The curse has no substance of its own. It's a shadow cast by the belief in separation. It has the power you give it by believing it's your reality. But the moment your consciousness shifts back to its Genesis 1 identity, the moment you remember you are the image and likeness of the All, the shadow disappears. You don't have to fight the curse. You don't have to fix the curse. You simply awaken from the dream of it. The thorns and thistles were never real in the absolute sense. They were the perceptual reality of a mind asleep to its own divine nature. The path of mastery, then, is the consistent moment by moment work of withdrawing your belief from the appearance of the curse and placing it wholeheartedly in the truth of your original, blessed and supplied self. The thorns and thistles were never real in the absolute sense. They were the perceptual reality of a mind asleep to its own divine nature. The path of mastery, then, is the consistent, moment-by-moment work of withdrawing your belief from the appearance of the curse and placing it wholeheartedly in the truth of your original, blessed and supplied self. This is precisely where the whole religious narrative about Jesus gets flipped on its head. We've been sold this idea that his main gig was about being a blood sacrifice for sins, a cosmic transaction to appease an angry God. But if you really sit with his teachings, that's not the vibe he was putting out at all. His entire ministry was a living, breathing demonstration of what happens when an individual operates from the unshakable awareness of their Genesis 1 identity. Every single one of his moves, from turning water into wine to feeding the multitudes, was a masterclass in reminding. He wasn't just performing magic. He was reminding the people who witnessed it. And he's reminding us right now of a truth they had forgotten. He was reminding them of the law of the inner kingdom. He was reminding them that the material world, with all its lack and limitation, is not the final authority. He was reminding them that the substance of all things is spiritual and infinitely malleable to the consciousness that knows its oneness with the source. When he healed the sick, he wasn't just fixing a body, he was reminding the individual that wholeness is their eternal and only reality, and sickness is a temporary illusion accepted by a sleeping mind. When he walked on water, he was reminding his disciples that the so-called laws of the physical world are subordinate to the spiritual consciousness that perceives its dominion. He was constantly pulling back the curtain on the great lie of separation and reminding everyone of the truth of their original nature. He was the living embodiment of the words, "Be still and know that I am God." That "I am" he was talking about wasn't the human person named Jesus, it was the Christ, the divine I am, the very same essence that is the core of your being and mine. His mission was to remind us of our own Christhood. He came to show us that the power he demonstrated wasn't his alone, it was the birthright of every single soul who awakens to the who I am within. He was the prototype, showing us what's possible for a human life fully yielded to the divine consciousness within. He didn't come to get worship. He came to show us what we are so we could stop worshipping a God out there and start realizing the kingdom here. His life was a continuous call to remembrance, a relentless invitation to look past the illusion of the curse and see the face of the Father staring back at us from the depths of our own being. His life was a continuous call to remembrance, a relentless invitation to look past the illusion of the curse and see the face of the Father staring back at us from the depths of our own being. So, if that's the case, where is this kingdom exactly? If it's not a physical place up in the clouds, and it's not a political system here on earth, what are we even talking about? This is where the rubber meets the road, and where most of the religious dogma completely misses the point. The kingdom is your permanent, plugged-in connection. It's not a location you arrive at. It's the foundational reality of your own consciousness when it's consciously one with the source. It's the Wi-Fi of God, if you will, an ever-present, invisible field of infinite intelligence, life, and supply that is always broadcasting, always available. You don't build the Wi-Fi, you just have to realize your device is already equipped to receive the signal. The problem is, we've been walking around with our spiritual airplane mode, switched on, convinced we're offline and disconnected, trying to download blessings with a weak, broken connection to the world. Jesus said the kingdom is within you, and he meant that literally. It's the very fabric of your awareness, the innermost core of your I am-ness. It is the silent, powerful, creative ground of your being that was never touched by the idea of separation, never affected by the curse. It's the one place in your experience where there is no lack, no fear, no sickness, and no death, because it is one with the Father. This is the secret place of the Most High. This is the closet you go into to pray in secret. This inner chamber of conscious oneness is the kingdom, and it is your permanent, unbreakable link to the infinite supply. It doesn't fluctuate with the stock market. It doesn't get laid off. It doesn't get sick. It doesn't run out of ideas. It is the still, constant, ever-flowing stream of life itself, and your individual consciousness is a unique outlet for that stream. What entire spiritual work, then, is to stop seeking the kingdom as an external event, a healing, a job, a windfall, and to instead consciously abide in this inner connection. You take your attention off the outer evidence, and you place it on this inner union. You sit in the silence not to beg God for things, but to acknowledge, Father, you and I are one. Your life is my life. Your wisdom is my wisdom. Your infinite substance is my substance, appearing as everything I could ever need. You aren't trying to get God to do something. You are allowing God to be what He is through you. You are aligning your conscious mind with the eternal truth of the kingdom within. From that anchored place, your outer world has no choice but to reorganize itself to become a visible illustration of the kingdom's harmony, abundance, and perfection. The supply doesn't come to you, it flows out from you, from this inner wellspring that will never, ever run dry. The supply doesn't come to you, it flows out from you, from this inner wellspring that will never, ever run dry. And that brings us to the ultimate shift, the final piece that turns this from a nice philosophy into a lived reality. This is the difference between knowing the path and actually walking the path. It's the choice to live from the supply, not as for it. Most of our lives we're operating in the as for mode. We work for a paycheck. We pray for a healing. We hustle for a break. Our entire focus is on the external form we believe will finally make us whole, secure, or happy. We're like a gardener staring at an empty plot of dirt, praying for a seed to fall from the sky so they can finally have a garden. But that's living before the supply, and it keeps us in a perpetual state of waiting, of lack, of being at the effect of a world we can't control. The radical, Jesus-level flip is to start living from the supply. This means you make a profound internal shift. You stop identifying as the gardener with empty hands, and you start knowing yourself as the living expression of the entire garden, the seed, the soil, the rain, and the life force itself. You don't wait for the seed, you realize you are the seed planted in the Father, and your entire existence is a divine unfolding. You operate from the conscious awareness that the intelligence, substance, and power of the universe is the very core of your being, and you let your life be an outlet for that. So you don't work for a paycheck. You work from the joy of expressing the infinite creativity and intelligence of the Christ within you, and the paycheck becomes a secondary effect, what natural form that the substance takes. You don't pray for a healing from a place of sickness, you pray from the already established truth of your wholeness in God. Well, the healthy body is the outer manifestation catching up with that inner reality. You live from the finished kingdom. You live from the answered prayer. You live from the reality that every need is already met in divine mind before it even appears as a need in your human experience. Your job is not to create the supply. Your job is to recognize it, to trust it, and to let it flow through you into expression. This is what it means to seek first the kingdom. You place your primary attention on maintaining that inner connection, on abiding in the awareness of your oneness, and you trust. You really deeply trust that everything else, all the forms and details of your human experience, will be added unto you. They will organically, inevitably, and gracefully appear as the evidence of your rootedness in the source. You stop trying to make things happen, and you start allowing life to happen through you. Your actions are no longer born of desperation, but of inspiration. They are the natural, joyful movement of the infinite expressing itself as your unique and individual life.